Hi, I'm Stephanie Rozzo. Welcome to Nature Sketch Crate's Fiesta Marigold Monkeyflower step-by-step painting instructions video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to paint the Fiesta Marigold Monkeyflower using Nature Sketch Crate's step-by-step painting instructions. First, collect all your materials and make sure they're ready to go. Remember, this is just a sketch. Take your time, relax, and don't worry too much if you think you have made a mistake. Let's get started. Step 1, transfer the image to the watercolor paper. Now, you can tape the transfer image to the back of the watercolor paper. If you're going to transfer these hole punch lines, do not cover those up if you want those to show up on your image, on your watercolor paper. Go ahead and take the graphite transfer paper, dark side down, light side up, and as you can see, I've used this many times. You can use it over and over and over. Place it on there gently, pressing down, just to make sure it's flat. And go ahead and start transferring those image lines. You can start anywhere you like, and you can use a pen instead with a fine tip in order to see what lines you have already traced over. So just trace over the lines to transfer the image to the paper. And you'll want it to be dark, not too dark, but on the dark side, because you'll want to see those lines at the end to redraw them. So go ahead and draw over all of these lines. If you don't do them exact, don't worry too much. This is just a sketch, it doesn't need to be perfect. And maybe put on some music or a podcast, just relax and trace all those lines and transfer them over. Every once in a while, you can just kind of hold down the image and the transfer paper gently on one side and just flip it up and down to make sure you transfer all the lines in a certain area before moving on to the next part. Go ahead and flip the image up a few times once you have all the lines to see if you've missed anything. I usually end up missing something. If you flip it up and down like a flip book, you usually see if you missed anything, but you don't catch it in this step, it's okay. You can always draw it in later. Go ahead and transfer over the common name and the scientific name. The easiest way to transfer over the common name is to outline the inner part of the letters. So always drawing on top of the black parts of the letters. And you don't have to transfer this part if you don't want to. It's completely optional. Everything is optional. This is your sketch. Now that you've got all the lines transferred, go ahead and remove the graphite transfer paper. Again, you can use that over and over. Gently remove the tape from the back of the watercolor paper, and then remove it from your transfer image. Looks like I can't reuse it, but if you don't end up picking up any paper, you can reuse it. So I'll dispose of that. And go ahead and remove any smudges with your kneaded eraser. Make sure it has a clean, light gray spot. Just gently rub it over or dab it over the image to remove any smudges left behind from the graphite transfer paper, or to lighten any lines if you think any of them are too dark. Now, I like the way this looks, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to step 2. Step 2, paint in the dry dark monkeyflower orange. So first you want to mix the monkeyflower orange, which is just 2 drops of the chrome yellow. Make sure to shake it up to mix up any paint pigment that may have settled. Sometimes it settles on the outer lip of the bottle, so just kind of move that down and then shake that up. Take 2 drops, 1, 2. And just add some water to it to get it to be the right color. So take a little bit, adding a little bit of water here, and then I'm going to take a little to the side. Then I'll dab it on my towel, just on my paper. And I'll pick up that color, dab it on my towel, and then start adding it to my painting here. I'm going to add it to the bud, and just this small space here, and then I'm going to add it to this entire flower, just reserving that tiny middle area, which is the stigma. And I just like to start in the center and start in any spot. Just recommend keeping the edges wet to prevent lines, but as you can see, that's not really super important. And any lines will just kind of add some more character to your painting, making it a little more unique. I'm going to add to this last flower as well, everywhere except for this little spot here. So I'm going to outline it first, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint in the rest of the flower petal. And then move towards the rest of the flower. So I'm treating this all as one big shape rather than several small individual shapes right now. I like to start in the bigger area and then move out into those little areas. Kind of moving the paint down. Clean your brush off onto your towel and go ahead and move on to step 3. Step 3, paint the wettest, lightest monkeyflower earthy green. So first you want to mix the monkeyflower earthy green with 1 drop of the blue aqua. Shake that up to make sure it's well mixed. Two drops of the burnt sienna. And 5 drops of the chrome yellow. I'm going to mix that up. And we're going to need to add a lot of water to it in our palette in order to make it that really wet light color. So I'm going to take what's on my brush from mixing it, I'm going to add some more water to it to the side. Dab my brush off onto my towel and then test it on my test paper. It still looks a little bit dark, so I'm going to add even more water. Dab it on my towel, test it again. keep doing this until I get it light enough. I'll move some of the paint to the side, add just a little bit more water. It's just about where it's supposed to be, just still a little too dark. Dab it on my towel, test it on my test paper, and you may not be able to see the difference, but I think that that is light enough there. Dab it on my towel. You don't want to add a bunch of water to the paper itself. Protect your painting with your transfer image while you're painting from smudges. And go ahead and start on any leaf and just go ahead, paint over each one. And these you'll want to treat as each an individual shape because they're small. Just go ahead and fill those in. Maybe just a little dark still. If it's still too dark when you're painting it, just dab it off onto your towel to get rid of a little bit of that color. There we go. In addition to these leaves, we're also going to fill in this little center part here, and don't forget the bud. And when you're filling in the bud, there's a little bit here. There's this tiny little triangle shape in front of the orange shape, and then there's a part that goes over, but this middle area right here stays white. And then there's a little tip of the bud there. And that one might be a little tricky. If you fill in that white area, don't worry too much. It's just a sketch. It's going to be beautiful no matter what. So go ahead and go throughout and finish adding all of these green areas. Once you've painted in all of those leaves and buds, go ahead and clean your brush off, let this dry, and move on to step 4. Step 4, paint in a dry dark and wettest lightest monkeyflower red. So first go ahead and mix the monkeyflower red with 2 drops of the crimson lake. And 1 drop of the burnt sienna. Adding a bit of water, not too much, that mixed in. Then taking some to the side and adding it again. A lot of water, mixing kind of a medium dry color in the center by combining the two. Dabbing off your brush and checking it on your paper, and it looks like a good color to me. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding that. Just going to put a little dot in the middle of the bud here, trying to keep those little areas on the outer edges orange. And then I'm going to paint in each of these flower petals, preserving this middle area and the green spot and the fringed edges. So I'm going to start in the middle here and work on basically 1 petal at a time and just kind of bring that paint up to the top without painting the edges, these outer fringed edges. So I'm going to do the same here and get more paint whenever you need it. Make sure to dab it off on your towel before applying it to your painting. And if you forget space and you get too close to the edges, don't worry too much. This is just a sketch. And each of these flowers are very individual, and the amount of orange on their fringed edges changes based on the flower anyway. Each one has a kind of a different amount. Don't worry too much about it if you feel you might have made a mistake. It's going to look great. It doesn't need to look exactly like this. In fact, every time I paint with watercolor, it looks different based on maybe my mood or how I was feeling, or just what the watercolor ended up doing. When you've added all of that, clean off your brush and pick up some of the really wet, light Monkeyflower red. So adding a lot of water to it in your palette, dabbing it off. Testing it on your test paper. Picking it up again, dabbing it off, and then adding it to these stems. So this stem here, and then this little stem here. And then clean your brush off and move on to step 5. Step 5, paint in the Monkeyflower bright green and driest darkest Monkeyflower orange. So 1 drop of the blue aqua, 2 drops of the burnt sienna, 1 drop of the cobalt blue, and 4 drops of the chrome yellow. Go ahead and mix that up. Oh, and some of it splattered onto my painting, and that is okay. I will try to clean it up a little bit, get a little bit of wet spot on my towel. Just taking a tiny corner of my towel and picking it up. Now it'll still be there a little bit, but mostly gone. And that's okay, because this is just a sketch. You could alternatively leave that. Maybe you want paint spatters. So now that it's mixed, I'm going to take it a little bit to the side and add lots of water to it. Dab it off onto my towel. Pick it up again, adding a little more water. Dabbing it off and then checking it on my paper. It looks good to me, so I'm going to add it to all of these leaves. Just kind of adding a highlight color like you see in the image in step 5. Get outside the lines, don't worry about that, just makes it a little more interesting. Add some more character to it. It's just a quick sketching method, and any mistakes make it more fun. So go ahead and go throughout and add just a little bit of this color to create a little more contrast. You don't want to cover all of the space up, just parts of it, just here and there, like you see in the image in step 5. When you're done with that, go ahead and clean off your brush. Get some more, I'm going to actually get more chrome yellow for that Monkeyflower orange. Just put a drop in there. And I'm just going to take it as it is and add it to the orange areas. Again, just like we did with the last color, I'm not going to add it to cover up the entire orange area. It's just going to add a little bit more of a contrast. So some areas will stay light and some areas will be this darker color. When you're done with that, go ahead and clean off your brush. And these leaves should be dry. Go ahead and dab them just to make sure. Pick up this driest, darkest color. Roll it and dab it off onto your towel. And that'll give you a nice tip so you can outline all of these leaves and the stems. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just the basic outline. So go ahead and go throughout and add those lines. Just like you see in step 5's image and your final reference image. Once you've outlined all of the lines needed, as you see in step 5 in your final reference image, you can go ahead and clean off your brush and let this dry and move on to step 6. Step 6, paint in driest darkest Monkeyflower red and dry dark Monkeyflower earthy green. So we'll start with the driest darkest Monkeyflower red, so that means there isn't a lot of water added to it in our palette and not in our painting. And we'll go ahead and add it. I'm going to add a little bit darker in that bud, and then add it to the petals, kind of like adding lines, wanting to preserve some of that lighter color underneath. So don't paint over the entire thing, each petal, like we did with the lighter red. Go ahead and go throughout and add the color to each of these petal areas on this flower and the flower on the right. Also use the tip of this paintbrush to add some spots. Maybe outline these anthers a little bit, if you like, and then add some tiny spots in the orange area of the center, this forward-facing flower. The spots do not need to be in the same place as the final reference image and your image in step 6. As long as they are still in that center orange area. But do try to avoid this little round spot that's the stigma. Once you're done with the red color, go ahead and clean off your brush. Go ahead and pick up some of this dry dark earthy green, adding a little bit more water to it, dabbing on my towel, and I'm going to just check it on my paper first, then add it, making sure not to put my hand in any of the red spots just in case they're still wet. And I'm going to add it to the leaves. Again, not covering the entire leaf, just adding it kind of sparingly throughout to create a little more contrast. Once you're done, go ahead and add a little bit to this center green area here in the center flower, maybe just one side, preserving some of the light color still. Clean off your brush, let this dry, and move on to step 7. Step 7, add ink lines. Since this is dry, go ahead and start adding ink lines with the black 005 black micron. I'm just going to go throughout and add those lines, really just redrawing all the lines that I drew in our first step. And I'll use this also as a base if I need to thicken any of the lines. It's such a tiny little tip, so if we make mistakes, it's not going to cause any big problems. Be hard to correct. So you can redefine your spaces too based on where your watercolor ended up. You can make it wider or thinner. It's up to you. This is your sketch. So go ahead and go throughout and add all of those lines. And don't forget to draw over the scientific name and common name if you had transferred those over as well. Next, use the 01 black micron to outline the scientific name and the flower petals, like you see in 7A's image. Lastly, I'm going to use the 08 black micron to fill in the common name and thicken some of the lines as seen in 7B and the final reference image. And make sure not to rub your hand over this because it can smudge when it's not dry. So don't put your hand in it while it's wet. So right after you apply it to your painting. So just go ahead and go throughout and add those lines. At this point, you could add more ink or paint. Just make sure you let it dry in between applications. And so we're done. Great job. You have created a unique painting that only you can do. Next, you have a few options of what to do with this painting. You can punch holes in it and add it to your sketchbook. You can frame it, gift it. Also, make sure to share it on our Facebook fan art page. Check out the Nature Sketch Crate website to sign up for the newsletter for regular updates and to purchase future crates. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you had fun and had a chance to relax a little. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the like button and subscribe to this YouTube channel.